Hey everybody, it's GauntletX, and welcome to the August 2024 Best of 1 Qualifier Play-In Event. In this event, we'll be playing Bloomburrow Sealed, where if we hit 6 wins before 2 losses, we will gain entry into this month's Qualifier Weekend. This is a competitive event where many players are trying to grind their way into the Qualifier Weekend for a chance of grinding their way into the Pro Tour, but if you've got some leftover play-in points that you can get from best of 3 drafts or being top 1500 mythic, it's also the only place to spend those play-in points to turn them into cold hard gems. So that's a fine goal for today, just churning out some gems, but I'll still be trying my best to see how far we can take it. So without further ado, let's bust open these packs and see what we get to play with today. Very solid rares out of the sealed pool, and a very nice, very clear direction we can take it. We have 2 copies of Castrol as well as an Essence Channeler for 3 great rares between blue and white. If we have a lot of token production from having a bunch of rabbits or offspring cards, then Caretaker's Talent can be quite good as well. So potentially some really powerful stuff going on in blue-white. Also some fixing we can put in pretty much any deck with this Fabled Passage. Maybe that helps us splash in a Vren, get to play the majority of the rares in the sealed pool that way, or maybe our commons and uncommons are just really bad and super non-synergistic in these colors, in which case we can go for a squirrel deck backup plan or have one good red aggro rare. So pretty big fan of the rares in the sealed pool at least, but we'll see how the commons and uncommons are looking, starting off with the multicolored and the colorless. This is a great place to see what you can slot into any deck, as well as how much mana fixing you have. And it looks like we have quite a bit of fixing for this format. We have Uncharted Haven, Fabled Passage, and 2 copies of Hidden Grotto. There's also, well, I guess that's it. These colorless cards here are not mana fixing at all. I got a little mixed up with this Bark Form Harvester being able to maybe filter mana, but no, it puts cards back from the graveyard. So these are both pretty filler cards. Not the most exciting, we'll just run them if we're really lacking on playables in whatever color we play. So let's check out the multicolored now. So Pond Prophet, Head of the Homestead. All these hybrid mana cards aren't really huge reasons to be in a specific color pair, because they're basically easier to end up in our deck than even monocolored cards are. They're even more flexible than those. So I don't look at those super highly as signals for any certain direction, but cards like Vine Reap Mentor, requiring us to be in specifically green-black and being really good for that archetype, is something to keep in mind. So we do have double Vine Reap Mentor to go with Camellia, so that feels pretty awesome. Outside of that, just 1 blue-red uncommon, 1 black-red uncommon, 1 blue-black one to go with our blue-black rare. Solid stuff all around, but the most exciting backup plan outside of being this blue-white, maybe splash-black deck is definitely going to be the Golgari Squirrels deck with Camellia as well as double Vine Reap Mentor. So let's check all our colors individually. Really hope that our white and our blue are great, but if they're not, we'll see how our green and our black are looking. And starting things off with the white, it looks just fine. There's 1 great removal spell with Banishing Light, 1 mediocre removal spell with Parting Gust. There is no token production out of white to go with our Caretaker's Talent, which is a pretty huge bummer, but maybe blue can help us out there if we're lucky. And most of the creatures are pretty filler, they're fine though. As for blue, yeah, unfortunately blue is not looking great, and we also have, what, 0 birds? We have 1 bird in the entire sealed pool outside of the blue-white multicolored rares? Yeah, this is a Bat Cleric. Wow. Alright, well, we missed really big on Castrol here. Now, the card is still good off of just itself dealing combat damage to your opponent, but because it's our only bird, it is significantly weaker because we're significantly less likely to trigger it and deal combat damage to our opponent with a bird, and it's way less flexible. Now, basically, its only ability is whenever we deal combat damage to an opponent, we draw a card, which is, again, a great ability to have on an evasive threat like that, but not quite bomb level anymore, just like a solid uncommon in terms of power level with the lack of birds in the sealed pool. I mean, if we look this way, there, type bird out this way. Yeah, that's literally it. Wow. Even just typing the word bird ends up with just these 4 cards. I thought there would be a little bit more showing up when I typed the word bird, because there's the cards like Lupin Flower Village that care about a bunch of different creature types. But that is genuinely depressing for the double Castrol. Alright, again, outside of those great rares, our blue and our white just looked kind of average, right? The Banishing Light is definitely good, and the creature curve is fine here. And for blue, honestly, blue's probably a little below average. Like, it has some pretty good late game spells. That's about it. These early creatures are, really all the creatures are pretty filler. I do like Long River Lurker and Frog decks trying to get a lot of enter the battlefield effects, but pretty bad stuff to go with a double Castrol. Maybe we get paid off in black and green towards a Squirrels deck, though. Already off to a better start than birds, because we have the Bone Cache Overseer, incredible card to work with Squirrels. They are going to be producing a lot of food tokens, as well as potentially giving us the Forage ability, letting us exile 3 cards from our grave for value. So with the Overseer, we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with some Squirrels at its side. It looks like out of our black, there's no foraging. It's entirely just some food production. But there is a little food production here, and obviously out of our Golgari cards, we had both of those Squirrel uncommons making a food when they enter the battlefield and when they die, so that works great with the Overseer as well. We've got great removal here. We have a Saver and a Nocturnal Hunger for premium removal, and then double Early Winter to fill things out, have a little more removal there as well. The Wix Patrol's a fantastic 2-for-1 removal spell, being a big creature and clearing something out. Black is looking pretty great. Red also looks quite great. Double Take Out the Trash here, double Quake Tusk Boar for big finishers. Not too much else super exciting at the other spots of the curve, but there's enough stuff there to fill a deck out. So red looks reasonable. I still think black is our best color by a tiny bit. Well, black and red are pretty on par, but black could give us access to those black-green rares, which is kind of a big deal. And last but not least, hopefully we've got our green. We've got a Squirrel at 2 mana that also makes a food. We have another Squirrel at 2 or 4 mana that forages to go with the Bone Cache Overseer. We have the Cash Grab making another food. We have 2 Treetop Sentries to forage as well. We've got a Polywallop for removal. Loving the idea of the green-black Squirrels deck here as the spot to be. Another peek at colorless, there's really nothing there. And another look at our hybrid mana cards. See if any of this slots in really well into anything we've been thinking about. Not really, we just play the Head of the Homestead in our green-black Squirrels deck. Just enough good value from playing it. Pawn Prophet might be playable there too. Little hard to cast being double green as a 2-drop, but probably worth it. Obviously we get the Camellia. We get the double Vine Reap Mentor. It looks like it's just green-black Squirrels is where to be. Do we want to splash blue here? None of our blue cards are particularly strong enough to want to splash or particularly splashable in the first place. But we could get Vren. So if we're casting any of our removal spells and exiling our opponent's cards, we're spitting out a bunch of rat tokens. It'd be a cute splash. We have a decent amount of removal in black to go with it. The Hunger, the Saver, and the double Early Winter and the Wix Patrol. It's like 5 to go with Ren. And I guess if we end up just trading off as well, that puts our opponent behind. Every trade becomes favorable. Right, because if we both lose a card, but then I get up a rat in the end of things, we're just going to end up having the larger board state over time if we just keep trading off. Yeah, this is probably worth a splash, honestly. Maybe even the Tidecaller Mentor, because this is kind of the perfect kind of card you want to splash, where it's really good in the late game, because you can't consistently have your splash color until the late game. So by the time that we have the blue for it, it'll probably be pretty great. So we'll throw in a couple rats to splash into our green-black squirrels deck. And that means we're playing a little bit more blue sources, make Pawn Prophet slightly more castable. Play Baker's Bane Duo, Bodyguard, Cash Grab, Polywallop, Treetop Sentries for sure. Saver, Overseer, Daggerfang Duo is another rat for the deck, which could matter a little bit for Vren, but doesn't really matter. Nocturnal Hunger, Double Winter, Wix Patrol. Alright. Still need to throw 3 more cards into this deck. Dire Sight looks like it would work pretty well in here. It's going to fill our graveyard to forage with. It's also going to fill our graveyard for Threshold. Actually, you know what I am realizing here? Fills our graveyard for Wix Patrol as well. Forage and Threshold do not play well together, because our Treetop Sentries style forage cards are going to want to exile stuff from our grave, but then our Tidecaller Mentor is going to want us to have a bunch of stuff still in grave. So I don't love playing them all together. Also that Bushy Bodyguard wanting to exile stuff from grave. And unless we have just a ton of food production to only forage by sacking foods. Okay, this doesn't make a food. This doesn't make a food. Oh, and this also forages. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways to make a food. That's still kind of a lot. These make it twice. I don't know. If we have a really reasonable card to play over Tidecaller Mentor, I probably will, but we have enough food production that if we ever like draw into the Tidecaller Mentor, we can choose not to be exiling from grave. What is the rat count as well for this Persistent Marsh Stalker? 4? Probably not the greatest. It's still a 2-mana 3/1 that maybe comes back. It's going to be very rare that it comes back with only 4 other rats, but not impossible. Soothsayer's probably fine. Huskburster Swarm might actually be sweet in this deck with enough self-mill. We have Dire Sight and Cash Grab really hitting the self-mill theme. But then there's a Wix Patrol at the high mana values as well. There's a little bit of self-mill to try to make this cheaper. Put it in for now. Put a bunch of stuff in and then cut a few. We have like 1 creature token in this deck, just the Bushy Bodyguard Offspring. I guess there's some rabbits. It's 1 card that makes rabbits. It still feels like a low enough count that this card's just pretty bad. Just for the +1/+0 once per turn, it's just not a good card. If you're consistently giving Death Touch to some 1/1 tokens to break them through a wide board state, that can actually be pretty good. Or a tall board state like some Chunky Defenders. But the +1/+0 without the Death Touch is just not exciting. We don't have a ton of good cards to pick up for Sticky Tongue Sentinel, but we have a couple that are fine. Most exciting is Bushy Bodyguard, but replaying something that makes another food is okay. Replaying this to mill ourselves again is okay. Replaying this to draw another card could be fine later. I can put it in for now, just like I can put these in for now as filler top end. Beat Sticks. Do not think I'll be playing a double black. Just 2/3 flyer. Just a little hard to cast. Might try to play a 3-mana 4/3 Menace. Well, just a 3-mana 4/3. We gotta spend extra mana for the Menace. Could play 1 Barkform Harvester if I am really scared of self-mill, but if we've gone long enough to have milled a bunch and drawn some extra cards, we're probably just ahead anyway, and this card's pretty bad otherwise. 3-mana 2/3. Like, unless you need its ability, it's just not great. Alright, so we shoved all that nonsense in, now we need to cut 5 cards. We've got 21 creatures and 7 non-creatures, so we want to cut basically all creatures here. That is a large amount. So, Cutthroat's kind of just a a body, no extra abilities that are super relevant, no creature types that are super relevant. Could see dropping Marsh Stalker if we drop any other rats or any other self-mill. This is kind of our only flyer, but it's also really just a 3-mana 2/2 flyer, which is not very good. We have a couple ways to trigger the Surveil 1 now and then, but we're not a deck that's doing it like every turn to make it kind of worth it. Kind of feel like we could drop the Rust Shield Rampagers as well. They're flexible, being able to be cast for 4 or 6, but we have like plenty of other plays at those mana costs. 3 4 drops, 2 6 drops. So that's a potential cut as well. And I could just cut these 5 and call it a deck. I could, seeing as we have Savor, Nocturnal Hunger, and double Early Winter, I could cut the Polywallop, because it's not going to be super efficient in this deck. We have like 2 frogs. It's always going to cost 3 or 4 mana, and the one risk of this card is that if your opponent has their own interaction response, if they have their own instant speed removal spell, they're killing your creature and blanking your removal, which is a pretty massive downside. So we could maybe drop that as the only potential non-creature cuts. And then maybe the Husk Burster is just a little too iffy with only like 3 self-mill cards total. 1 Cash Grab, 1 Dire Sight, 1 Daggerfang Duo. I guess there's Wix Patrol as well, I forgot about that one, but that's 6 mana self-mill, so at that point we're already just almost hard casting this. Not really getting the cost reduction from a Wix Patrol. Yeah. So 5 and any combination of this stuff would be the cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards have been set aside here. So we can just put 2 back into the deck and then be happy from there. So what do I want the most in this deck? What looks like it's missing a little bit? I feel like I could still use another non-creature spell, so I am going to run the Polywallop. See how bad that plays. Well, I don't know. I guess I have the Wix Patrol for removal too. So there's actually like 5 removal spells in the deck even without Polywallop. Nah, I changed my mind. I like being a 4 or a 6 from the Rampager, so I'll put 1 of those back in. I don't think I'm going to play both. And then I am keeping pretty much every other rat in the deck, so I'll try out the Persistent Marsh Stalker here. This looks pretty reasonable to me as the final build. I think that's what I'm going to go with, but we do want to make sure that Arena has suggested a good mana base for us. We have 14 black cards, 12 green, and 3 blue, so pretty even on black and green. And they have kept it exactly even. And then blue being the splash, where we just need a single blue source for either of these 2 cards. We do want to run a single island, so I can pull it off of the Fabled Passage here. So that looks pretty much accurate, pretty much what we want the mana base to look like. Yeah, call it a deck here and see how it does. Alright, here we are for game 1. Due to the Hidden Grotto, we're going to have to play things off curve here instead of turn 2 Vine Reap Mentor, but Sealed usually buys you the extra time, just due to decks being a little less synergistic and less curve heavy, to play a little slower and do things off curve. So Hidden Grotto, a card that I'm really low on in draft, but I think it's a fine playable to splash some stuff in a sealed deck like this. In draft, things tend to be streamlined enough that you are hurt really badly playing off curve. And there is a natural green source. I could turn 3 Camellia, but I highly doubt that's what we want to do. I've got the Savor to protect this from some weird flash creature that I don't know of yet. It is interesting and kind of exciting that we got into the Bloomburrow competitive season less than a week from the set's release. So there's still a lot of like uncertainty of like, I don't think these colors have a flash creature there, you know, and stuff like that. Well, that's terrible. That rare is even stronger than mine. That's going to buff all of their mice, and even if I kill it, they've got this Crag Flame. They can give any creature they play for the rest of the game Vigilance, Trample, Haste, with that equipment, and it's too big to savor. I can Nocturnal Hunger Mabel, and that's probably what I have to do, but this Crag Flame is still going to be putting in some work. Okay. Let's drop the Forest, so if I top deck a Swamp, I could play Mentor and Savor in the same turn. Let's get Mabel out of here while they're tapped out. One card engrave. Want to get the food before we play the sentries for sure. Oh my god. Alright, that is really terrible follow-up for us because it can just return Mabel back to the board. It's 3 toughness as well, just dodging our Savor super well here. I obviously can't block it, so I might as well send in the Overseer here and see if we can get the 2-for-1 trade into it. Which still isn't ideal because we're spending 2 cards to kill one of theirs, but it would be worth it with how good this card is. Well, 2 incredible rares in a row. We are desperate now. Yeah, Camellia isn't even that good here. I'm setting up the Vine Reap Mentor to have another food for the sentries, so we can dig for an out here. Get the second black source, I think. Or the second green. We've got 2 green cards, 2 black cards, but the black cards are cheap enough. I could play Camellia and Saber in the same turn pretty soon. Take longer for the treetop sentries and Camellia. Alright, so Mabel's back. They get a second Crag Flame, but that doesn't work out because it's legendary. It's really just that the 3/3 that buffs all the mice is back. Plus it's a card to equip with the Crag Flame and have a 4/4 trampler. Okay. So what now? If I play Treetop Sentries and forge away the food token, I get to dig 2 cards deep looking for one of our removal spells that actually kills 3/3s and 4/4s. I don't have the mana to play Treetop Sentries to have a reach blocker and also Savor on blocks here. So I can't kill anything with Savor as a trick. I mean, I guess I could kill Mabel because she's on the ground, but I can't kill Zoraline, which is the bigger problem. Could play Camellia and just hold up a Savor and try to just start doing my own nonsense and hope that it can outpace theirs. Might just be our best bet. Do some racing here, I guess. Not a huge fan. Could send the Overseer in, since they are forced to double block with the Menace. If I send in the Overseer and they double block, I can Savor the Zoraline. But having the option of also like sacking a food to get a 1/1 here feels big. Buff all the squirrels too. I forgot this thing gives Vigilance too. Vigilance and Trample. Yes, the counterattacks aren't great, but our whole board's going to have Menace. Get another 2/2 squirrel here. Feels risky to Savor on blocks. So they've got all the mana in the world for any trick in the world. Gonna take it. Go to 8. Thought Stalker Warlock. It's pretty frustrating, but I can full control and then Savor it before they can rip our Savor from our hand. I don't think I needed to full control mode for that, but just to be safe. Byway Barterer. Wix Patrol. would be so good right now with literally one more mana. They're at 14. I can put 2 +1/+1 counters on all my squirrels. That's 5, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage if they block nothing. So even if they block absolutely nothing, we don't find lethal. So it is safer to gain some life off of the food to get the outrace. So we send in the Vine Reap Mentor holding up Camellia as a combat trick. I mean, whenever I sack a food, I do get a 1/1 squirrel as well. This could be an attack with Camellia too. Probably not. No blocks. So I'm going to play a Pond Prophet here. Can only hit for 1 more damage by foraging. Yeah, it's probably going to be better to gain the life. Well, Vine Reap Mentor makes things difficult. Is it better to gain 3 and get a 1/1 squirrel, or just get a 3/2 and a food token and be at 8 against this board? 8 against this board feels pretty risky. Especially where if I can just stabilize off the life gain and the squirrel, I have the Wix Patrol coming up. Big yikes. Paying the life might be good for me here. They're at 9. They play 1 more blocker and they have 4. They can block 2 menace creatures, block. 1, 2, 3, 4 from 2 squirrels. Five, 6, 7, 8. If I do another forage, I actually think I ditch Wix Patrol. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm gonna go to 11 here. I don't think we're getting there. Shoot. I was trying to see if we could manufacture like lethal on the crackback. But no. Because they have to gain the life here instead of getting the counters. Oh, and they have the duo too anyway? Jeez. Alright. Definitely could have played that out much differently. We could have played full defensive or full offensive. I think full offensive was the only way we maybe cheesed something out there. Just make all the squirrels get all the counters. Maybe don't die. Full defensive, we're just dying through all this stuff. When I can sit here and die slower, but that's just overwhelming board state. Yeah, the only way is maybe cheesing out enough counters on enough menacing squirrels. We could have outraced them if I had attacked more aggressively earlier. Rough, though. Basically got triple rared. Mabel into Zorline to reanimate Mabel was disgusting. Actually, we literally got triple rared. They played the Barterer, too. Here we are for game 2. Pretty perfect mana. Definitely a slower hand, though. But that is how Sealed hopefully tends to be. Oh, it is how it tends to be. It's just hopefully how this game goes as well. Just hope that this game is not out of the norm in terms of speed. Okay, Sentry's Mentor is a little bit awkward, having both in the opener. Kind of fighting each other. But I mean, I could just play a 3-mana 3/3 Menace. Could have done that last turn. Clifftop Lookout to ramp our opponent up. Fabled Passage. That'll be the third card engraved for Treetop Sentries. Sorry, Tidecaller Mentor, but that feels pretty appealing to me. More mana's pretty bad right now. Pretty floody. Sticky Tongue Sentinel, pick up the Clifftop Lookout so they can replay it and ramp a little more later. Okay, Camellia really changes the course of this game quite a bit. Did not have a huge plan before her, although we haven't drawn any of our food production, actually. Oh, so she doesn't do much. I mean, she gives Menace to the Daggerfang duo for swings, which is big. We can put one card engraved towards the Forage. That is going straight into the grave. I still need 2 more. Guess she can, like, draw removal for us. I mean, Menacing Daggerfang duo trades into 2 Bonebind Order, which isn't even that valuable, because then they just have 2 pieces of Graveyard Recursion in grave anyway. But then everybody else with Menace can get past this. Early Winter at its side. This is actually the saddest Camellia, but I do think we just run her out. Alright. Found some damage. Alright. GG. Season of Loss is a board wipe plus a draw 3. At least Tidecaller Mentor is a lot closer. But all it gets is just 1 bounce anyway, so it's probably better to just curve a little here. Could have picked up the Hidden Grotto for another Surveil, maybe. Probably don't really need my lands to all be played out as efficiently as possible when I have so many. Season of Loss is the highest win rate card in the entire format. It is the bombiest bomb in the set. Just statistically, data-wise. It does have some fierce competition with the Fecund Greenshelled, the really big turtle thing, but currently, at the time of recording, it is sitting at the highest win rate. And Paw Patch Recruit is nothing to scoff at either. Any removal I play gives them +1/+1 counters on their other creatures now. 2 +1/+1 counters. Yeah, I mean, we're never breaking through this. At this rate, they have 4 cards to our 1. I spend removal and they just make one of these beefy enough to trade up here. This is just a losing battle. Not only is it 4-1 card, but they have 2 pieces of Graveyard Recursion as well. And we have no board wipe in our deck. All we have is just like 1-for-1s, really. Yeah, there is no universe in which this turns into a winning game, so I'm over it. Let's get out of here so we can get into the next one a little quicker and have an actual chance. That was a devastating run. We just ran up against 2 decks with incredible bomb rares in a row and got destroyed by them. And that is sealed for you sometimes. I think the sealed pool was alright. We had a good squirrel deck in here, and I think this was the correct path to go. Maybe the blue splash wasn't really worth it, but I don't think we really got hosed for going for the blue splash. But Outside of that, pretty confident we're supposed to be green-black in the sealed pool over blue-white, or anything else here. We had a pretty good deck. We just ran into even better, just extremely powerful decks, and all we get back is 500 gems. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.